Life is meant for you to figure it out. You're not supposed to have all the pieces together. And what's the point of trying to have the whole picture if you're not going to enjoy the process of it? And I can understand that it's hard. It's a struggle. It's often one of those things that you kind of just wish you knew you could see, and the moment that you see it, you would be like, okay, I understand what's gonna happen afterwards. And the reality of that is just that doesn't work that way. Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of Unfeigned Yourself. If you saw in today's title, you know that we are going to be tackling something that's kind of been a little heavy on my heart, but something that I can't wait to share with you guys. It's a personal experience, but it's one that I hope adds value, or one that can be of encouragement to others. So let's get straight into it. Life is meant for you to figure it out. Now, you can spend your whole life trying to put the pieces together, or you can change your perspective and understand that I kind of just have to go on this journey and the pieces are all going to formulate together. If I plug into my belief system, if my support system, and that looks different for all of us, your family, your friends, your belief, your passion, your desires, your hopes, your dreams, and slowly all those pieces, they come together. Have you ever prayed to God for something and you kind of just hope that he answers you in the way that you want him to, right? So, God, I want to be more confident. I want to be more brave. I want to be less judgy. I want to do more with my life. I want a new job. I want a new car. I want to have a better relationship with my family, a better relationship with you, a better relationship with myself. And you kind of just hope that, okay, once this prayer has been prayed and I say my amens, and the message gets sent right up, and tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going to get it. My prayers are going to be answered. And God has this very funny sense of humor that kind of he only understands, but he is also such a gracious and a kind God. And so everything that we pray to him for and everything that we ask for, he gives it to us. It just doesn't happen on the time that we want it to happen. And just like the Bible says in Isaiah 55 verse 8, my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways, declares the Lord. And then the famous Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you hope and the future. So you know that your life is in God's hands and it's going to work out the way that he wants it to work out. And so while you're going through the journey and while you're going through the process, it kind of just seems like, okay, when? How long? 2 more sleeps, 3 more sleeps? And the reality is that it just doesn't always work or pan out that way. The Bible also talks about the power of the tongue. And half the time we associate it with bad things. We say that you need to be careful or be careful about what you're saying, how you're saying it, speaking over your life, speaking over other people's lives. And that's true. And if you think about certain things in your life that bugs you, or certain things in your life that you are insecure about, and those thoughts start with you. And the reason why I say that is, if you are okay with the decisions that you make in life, if you are okay with your physical appearance, if you are okay with everything that was going on in your life, the moment that somebody said that about you or said something about it, it wouldn't trigger you in the manner that it usually does. Back to the power of the tongue. Remember when I said I want to be more brave, I want to have more confidence, I want clarity on my passions. I want people to see what I'm meant to be and not what they think. I want to see myself in the way that God has planned for my life. And so I'm going to share a bit of a personal story with you guys. I grew up in a very close knit family that's super loving, caring, and supportive. And if anyone ever gets the opportunity to meet them, I know that they will attest to that. And so I grew up in a home where my parents have always allowed me to be who I want to be, to explore all kinds of my life, my passions, my dreams. And it's never been forced on me to be a specific person. And so eventually, I kind of had this idea that I wanted to be in the medical field. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know in which way or which spectrum. I kind of just knew that that's what I wanted to be. That's what I was destined to be. And so, kind of just got reiterated in many ways. You're so attentive, you're so kind, you're so passionate, you're so loving. It's always such a relief when people talk to you. You are such a good listener. And so the world of psychology had just become this new identity, this new who I was going to be. And so, as I said, I grew up in a really close knit family, and my surroundings have kind of been the same, where people had always spoken over my life good things. And I remember one, two, or three, or four people had said, "You have this really great teaching ability to you, and you would make a wonderful teacher one day." And the reasoning behind it was always you have the ability to connect to people and children on a very beautiful manner, and you're able to connect on their level. And at the time, you try to rationalize the situation and you say the wildest things. You're like, you can't see that I'm not supposed to be a teacher. Half the time, society and the world doesn't value teachers as great careers. And so I'm not of great value. I am not supposed to be at a better standard. And again, can't be further from the truth. People tell me you have such a lovely voice. You have this ability to speak to people really wonderfully, and like you could be the next great TV presenter, or you should apply for Miss South Africa. You're so beautiful. And immediately it comes on as a joke. Are we listening and talking about the same person? Are we looking at the same person? The same girl half the time doesn't want to get seen unless you pay attention to them. The same person who prefers to do things behind the scenes. That person, the same person who is able to pinpoint all the flaws and blemishes within themselves. That person, like, yeah, okay. Right guys. Now, I mentioned earlier the power of the tongue. And each year at some point, you pray the same prayer. God, I want to be more brave. God, I want to be more confident. God, I want people to see me in the manner that you have placed for my life. I want people to see me the way that I see myself. And so fast forward to the year 2025 or 2024, closer to the end of the year, after years and years of praying, you sit with yourself and you can't help but laugh and sulk and cry and thank God for the blessing and the hand that has never left your life. And now, isn't it funny how sometimes you pray to God about a specific thing and suddenly that specific thing I prayed to you about is getting worse? And you think to yourself, okay, so maybe I should probably stop praying to God about the specific thing. Or I'm just meant to be on the struggle list this year again. And all these things are happening. And so fast forward to university, finally get the opportunity to go into the field that I wanted to, the field that I was trying so hard to convince people about, tried to convince myself about. And it's finally like, yes, it's happening. I can finally start embarking this journey on who I'm meant to be. And every single thing about it is a struggle. From the beginning all the way to the end has just been this uphill battle. And while you're going through it, you try to rationalize it. Like, I have to fight for the things that I want in life. I have to fight for my destiny, for my passion, for my dreams. And towards the end, you kind of just sit and reflect, like, what's the point of all of this? Why is it that the one thing I want, the one thing that I've prayed so hard for, the one thing that I've seen in myself that other people have seen as well, is just the biggest struggle? What's the point of all of this? And then, in the same manner, people still have the actual audacity to say the things that they've been saying all along. And again, it's coming from a beautiful place. It's coming from a place of genuine love. And because I'm not in the headspace to see it, I just don't see it as anything other than I just don't want to hear it. And so eventually, after the nonsense, the struggle, you get the accomplishment and you get the accolades. And now what? And suddenly you're so exhausted from the entire experience. And it feels like I spent years trying to prove something only to feel like this. What is the point of it? I don't understand it. And again, God and life has a very funny way of doing some things. And so fast forward to the end of the year 2022, you sit with yourself and you're like, what's the next step? I'm still praying for the same thing. I'm still asking for the same thing. When are things going to change? And suddenly the weirdest thing happens. I had an opportunity to move to China to drumroll to teach. The actual irony in the story. The same girl who said, listen, you can't see, I'm meant to become a psychologist. The same person who said, value, my worth is higher than this. And God will make things happen in ways that you cannot imagine, in ways that you can't fathom. And so I had the opportunity to complete my PGCE and become a registered teacher. And again, my life is the same. The problems are the same. The prayers are the same. And they all focused on, God, I want to be brave. I want to be more confident. I want people to see what I'm meant to be. But most importantly, I finally want to feel like God's hearing my prayers. And one day you have a random conversation with someone and they ask you, what's something you've always wanted to do that you just haven't done? And the conversation gets deep, and again, you don't think of it at the time. You don't think of its value or its significance at the time. But the conclusion of the conversation is there's a deadline to finally do something that you've been putting on the back seat for years. And yes, this channel. And so fast forward to this very episode. I remember just a few days ago watching episode 3, and if you haven't, give it a watch. And it just hit me. It wasn't a chilling experience. It wasn't this big wow. The sun didn't suddenly shine brighter that day. The clouds didn't open up and there was a rainbow. But the sense of peace that washed over me it was something I can't explain. And I sat and I said to myself, I have a YouTube channel. I'm putting myself out there. I am showing people who I am. I'm providing a platform for people to be heard. I'm sharing my thoughts. I'm being an advocate for wanting to achieve a sense of peace in my life. And what is all of that? My teaching, my psychology, and the TV personality. Now, I don't know about Miss South Africa, but I'm really grateful for the people that see that in me. And now, when life is happening at the fast pace that it's happening, half the time you don't have time to sit, to reflect, to think about what you have achieved or what has happened in the past 10 years, the past 5 years, the past 2 weeks, the past 2 days, because life is just happening. And I've had many conversations with people who have complimented me on my bravery and my courageous spirit and the hand of God that's been on my life with moving all the way across the world. And you can't help but sit and reflect that, wow, I have had God answer a prayer in the way that I didn't expect Him to, yet He did. And this regular girl from South Africa moving across the world by herself with no real clue of what she's gonna do, how she's gonna do it, how she's gonna handle it. And I remember so distinctively the day at the airport and saying goodbye to my family was one of the hardest and scariest things that you can ever think of. And the sense of peace and calmness that was over me that day was weird. And if you know me and you know my mum and I, we love a good cry. And that day, it was just, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have God, and that's more than enough for me right now. And it's, and suddenly you're doing all these grown up things. You're paying rent by yourself. I had to make sure that I pay my utility bills. I had to make sure that I get medical aid. I had to make sure that I do this, and I had to make sure of all of these things that seem like a minuscule thing because you're an adult, you're a grown up, you have to do these things. But the sense of peace that I had while it was happening was something I genuinely took for granted. It was something that people had complimented on my bravery and courageous spirit. And yet it just seemed like another thing I was just doing, another thing I just had to do. And in this channel, 8 years of doubt, of fear, of anxiety, of being scared, you upload an episode and no fireworks. And then it hits you one day when you're sitting on the couch and you're watching yourself on TV and you say, wow, I did a brave thing. It took confidence. I'm in a space to do what I've prayed to God about. I have denied a lot of things where people have spoken over my life because I knew, or I was so set on doing something that I thought was what I needed to do. And you kind of just sit and you're like, okay, God, I see you. All this time I've been given what I've prayed for, and not in the manner that I wanted, but in the manner that I needed. And so, what does all of this mean? We're not supposed to have it all figured out, but you can believe and trust in the plans that God has for your life. And life is like a puzzle that has a trillion pieces. Okay, maybe not a trillion, but there's a bunch of pieces, and some of them they look the same. Some of them have the same shape. Some of them have the same color. And if you tap into your beliefs, your support system, and you get a solid foundation, and again, that looks different for all of us. And the moment that you start building the outer frame of the puzzle, the rest gets easier. And so, who's that frame for you? Your family, your friends, your loved ones, your belief, your passion, your desires. And then the rest, you kind of just figure out as you go along. And let's be honest, there are times when you're building a puzzle and there's a piece that you think should fit. It must fit, it needs to fit. And just the same way that we think, I need this job, I must have this job, I must have this relationship. And it doesn't fit, but I want it to fit. And so life just has a way of kind of proving to you that it doesn't. And there are times where you get the correct piece in the puzzle, like you get the job, you get the relationship that you wanted, you reach the goal that you wanted, and it kind of just feels like another thing. And then there are times where you get more than one pieces together and it feels like, wow, like I move across the world. I am building a better relationship with myself. I'm forming better habits. I'm doing better for myself. And then you start forming the pieces together. And it starts forming a picture. The picture's not complete. There are still thousands of pieces missing. And so you can either get frustrated with the fact that I don't know or I can't see what's happening, or you can sit and think, wow, the life that I'm building and the beauty that's in it. There are days where it's good and there are days that it's not. There are days that I get it right and there are days that I need to readjust. And there are days that I'm happy and there are days that I'm not. But there are always days for me to be grateful, to be happy, and to cherish the little victories that you do accomplish in life. Now again, if God gave us the full picture of the way that our lives were supposed to look like, what standard would we have for ourselves? How would we approach every situation in our life, every single thing that we get dealt with, if we know I'm going to end up in this great way that He had ordained for my life? And in the same way, how would we approach a situation if we knew that the president or our teachers, our parents, our moms, our dads were watching what we were doing, or anyone that we hold in high regard? How would we approach certain situations? How would we deal with the problems in our lives? And in a similar manner, if we knew that somebody who had the most anxiety or stress was presenting their big proposal today and they made a mistake, would we judge them? Probably not. Yeah. And so understanding that I know my life is going to pan out the way that it needs to. And so I have to approach it with the same grace and gratitude. I don't have all the pieces together, but I have a solid foundation. And I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity to be here. And so if there's one thing that I can say after all the things that I've said, never think that you are insignificant. Don't think that you don't have value. And sometimes God places people in your life to speak a blessing over you that He has ordained. And it always comes in ways that we don't want, or ways that we don't expect it to. But it's also important for us to just sit back and to reflect and to thank God for where we are in our lives, the little things that we do have going for us, and to change the way that we see some things and to just look at life from a different perspective and know that life can be so beautiful sometimes, problems and all. And so thank you for listening to today's episode. Follow me on Instagram and send me a message. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification for future episodes. And like always, here's to learning, to unlearning, and to unveiling yourself. Bye.